Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time out of your busy days and schedules to come here this morning and attend the 9th annual Camp Lejeune Small Business Outreach event. It's gone by different titles and names, but the intent and theme has always been the same. An attempt on our part to reach out to you, the community, and to recognize and honor the valuable partnerships that we have with you, as well as to facilitate your success and basically entreat you to continue to do business with us. Before I turn over to the microphone to some important people to give their opening remarks, I just want to acknowledge some unsung heroes in this process. People who won't necessarily be on the program, be on the podium, but without which events like this don't happen. First would be Ann Shaw in the Small Business Center there of North Carolina. She's been key behind the scenes in working with my colleagues and I in facilitating this process. Again, she's not on the program. You heard from some of her staff earlier an hour ago doing some acquisition-focused training, but her and that team is just representative of the blessing that we have here in North Carolina for agencies and facilities and services that are offered to you to facilitate your success in doing business. And so I did want to acknowledge her. And another group would be the Chamber of Commerce. And a real quick story, I had a colleague in my office who was looking to start a side business on their own. And they came and sat down with me in my capacity of running a small business office and asked, what do I need to do first? And my first question to them was, are you a member of your local chamber? And really, is that important? And I stress with them, yes. That successful firms that I've seen, and I've been doing this since 2003, are connected, they're communicating, and they're going after contracts and opportunities. And I've seen all that happen in our local Chamber of Commerce here. And so my first suggestion to her was reach out to the Chamber of Commerce that you need to join, you need to network, you need to communicate with that person. I know Lorette Legan is here from the Chamber of Commerce. Other members of her staff are here as well. And I would share that same advice with you. If you're not part of the local chamber here or whatever the chamber is in your local community, you're making a serious first mistake, and that you need to leverage that opportunity. Another unsung hero, and they got drafted in that last class, is representatives from the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And if those ladies and gentlemen would stand up briefly, because I know some of you just now arrived. The Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, represents, I call them a national asset. One of the descriptions that has been given for them, there are all sorts of agencies and firms out there that would love to tell you how to do business with the federal government, and most of them would like to sell you how to do business with the federal government. What makes this organization unique is, one, that they're national, but two, that they're an unbiased, fair proponent, advocate for you. And regardless of your category, regardless of what niche that you may find yourself fitting in, they'll help you across the board to be successful with you. And I never hesitate to send a firm, particularly when I deal with someone out of state, to send them to the PTAC. But I leveraged our local asset here in PTAC as well. So I thank you for being here. If you don't know who they are, definitely during a later break, if we give you one. You misbehaved last time. But if we give you another break, wander on, introduce yourself to them, give them a business card, get their contact information, and make sure you leverage that opportunity. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to my boss, Colonel Scott Baldwin, for some opening remarks.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning. How's everybody doing? All right, I'm probably better because after this I can leave. All right. Of course, I got another engagement I have to go to, and then another engagement I got to go to, but it's great. So if you don't know me, I'm Colonel Scott Baldwin. I'm the Deputy Commander at Marine Corps Installations East and the Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. And on behalf of Brigadier General Watson, who's currently the Commanding General of the installation, and Major General Alford, who is returning from Afghanistan and will reassume command of the installation. It's great to be here this morning for this 9th annual event. First, like Joe just did, I'd like to recognize all those folks who put this event on. There's always a lot of hard work, communications, planning, logistics, trying to get this sorted out, to get an august group like this together in this environment to talk about some very, very important roads ahead that we must be traveling over the next several years, specifically at Camp Lejeune. and in and around the local region when it comes to Marine Corps Installations East. Welcome to President Heatherly. It's always great to see you. This is just 2 days in a row, and then I got to see you later tonight again. And I look forward to it. So, I did tell him the chow is good tonight. So, and then Lorette, I don't know if she's still here, and the chamber, as always, it's a pleasure to be involved in anything that you all are involved in. You're a very professional organization, and we really appreciate and enjoy the relationship between the installation and the local community. So thanks for everything that you do, and I'll see you tonight as well, right? Okay, great. Chow will be good. And then I also like to thank, specifically I'll target Joe. He does, for those who don't know him, you might already know him probably, does an amazing job running our small business program at Marine Corps Installations East. Anybody you talk to from here all the way up through headquarters, Marine Corps has nothing but laudatory comments for him, and I've seen it over the years, his professionalism. So great job, Joe, in putting this on. I think it's very important for everyone. As I think everything will bear out over the next several years. So, and then second, all the business owners and folks who are here today, taking time out of your busy schedules to get involved. I know there's some self-interest in that, and that's what this is all about, right? It's a shared interest on everybody's part. So, thanks for being here. So, in many ways, today's event is really about a tale of two cities, right? For something that everybody's kind of familiar with. So both these cities fall under the name of Camp Lejeune. So the first city, you all know pretty well. It's part of a larger local community. It's still recovering from the devastating effects of Hurricane Florence. And some would, argue, at least for us at Marine Corps Installations East, also the effects of Hurricane Michael that came through exactly a month later. As you know, if you don't know, Hurricane Florence is one of the deadliest and the costliest hurricanes to come through the Carolinas ever. And we're feeling that. And it should come as no surprise, that the World Meteorological Society has retired the names Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Michael. And so one thing is we'll never see another Hurricane Florence, but we may see something like it. And that's one of our major concerns at the installation, to be completely honest, as you drive around the installation and see there's still a lot of blue tarps on roofs. So one of our concerns is the next Hurricane Florence-ish event that comes through here. So now the next step, really, we need to restore what we lost and improve intelligently where the storm has exploited our shortcomings on the installations. We got to recover smartly, using the resources that we have that are available to us to make sure that we do the best job that we can for the future. Our Commandant for the Marine Corps, General Neller, has already testified in front of Congress, and many of you have probably already seen that, of our very high price tag on the installations and the recovery efforts, somewhere around $3.5 billion in order for us to recover. That's a hefty price tag. So the money is one component, and I was just talking to a gentleman, about that price tag, right? This is not all coming in one huge tranche of money. Well, if it's coming at all, right? This is pending a supplemental from our Congress, providing us some resources so that we can recover. So the money is one obvious component to making things happen. The other is the folks that are sitting here today, right? The businesses, the small and large businesses out there in the local community, the surrounding community, that partner with the Navy and the Marine Corps to help respond to our contracting requirements. It won't be the Marines and sailors out there that are re-roofing buildings or putting up drywall or laying new flooring. It's going to be your businesses that are going to be coming and doing that. So in order to facilitate the efforts of our recovery, the first half of today's program is going to be headed by the Naval Facilities Engineering Command. Where's my NAVFAC? Where are the NAVFAC folks? they here there we are. Okay, great. So you're on the dot first. We actually have some other NAVFAC folks on base today, I think meeting some other important stuff, hurricane related, that we're discussing with our higher headquarters and your NAVFAC headquarters. So NAVFAC has the mission of maintaining our infrastructure and working our facility requirements for the Marine Corps. They pay very careful attention and articulating our requirements to make sure that those can translate into actual actions on behalf of the businesses to recover and to do the construction. So this is going to hopefully help how your firms can work together with them for paving the way ahead. So the second city in our tale is also called Camp Lejeune. And as you know, this serves as the home and the platform of your Marines and sailors who deploy across the world stage. Right now we have Marines in Afghanistan, we have Marines in Syria, we have Marines in Europe, we have Marines in the Persian Gulf, we have Marines in Korea, Australia, Thailand, Japan, spread all around the world, doing the mission. The mission never stops. Even when a large event such as Hurricane Florence blows through here and devastates our platform from which we deploy, it doesn't, our adversaries and our allies don't stop. And so we always have to be ready in order to go out and execute the mission. And with the base recovering and becoming the actual platform that it needs to be to take care of our Marines when they're here and support our Marines when they're actually deployed is critical. So to speak about the ongoing opportunities that are coming up, you're going to hear from Marine Corps Installations East, some of the folks from MCI East. You're going to hear from, I just talked to a major who I'm going to actually work with later on this summer out at Marine Forces Special Operations Command across the river. And then also Naval Medical Center, Camp Lejeune. Again, note their best practices and their lessons learned as they advise how best to do business with us. So as an added bonus, we do have a representative who's going to be here and is actually going to talk about base access, which I know is Lorette's favorite subject. Right, there are pitfalls and challenges associated with gaining and maintaining any sort of base access. As you can imagine, as our force protection conditions have gone up over the years, we are much more we scrutinize those who have access to our base much more, and hopefully the representative who's here today to discuss that will be able to make your help make your way onto the base a smoother process. So thanks again for being here and allowing me to speak for just a minute. And after I depart, you're welcome to ask any difficult question of anyone who's standing up here, including Mr. Heatherly. So with that, hopefully today bears some fruit for your labors and your time. And again, thanks for being here. And I look forward to working with you all in the future. Semper Fidelis. And now I guess I turn it over to Mr. Rosier. All right, thank you.
A long-standing partnership between the base and the community, frankly, between the Marine Corps and the community, has been our relationship with Coastal Carolina Community College. A long time embodied by Dr. Ron Lingle, but currently maintained without missing a step with the current president, President Heatherly. Sir, can you join us?
Thank you, Joe, and good morning. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. As Joe mentioned, I am doing my very best here to follow effectively in the footsteps of my predecessor, Dr. Ronald K. Lingle, who was president for well over 28 years. I myself am in my 41st year at Coastal Carolina Community College, believe it or not, and I have had various positions there, and I think the Board of Trustees has finally found one where I can do the least amount of damage. So I will try to be true to form with that. For well over 30 years now, the Small Business Center at the college has worked closely with the Chamber of Commerce. You've already met Lorette Ligon, the president, and Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune to be instrumental in providing partnerships where we can all work together toward the betterment of our community and our bases. And certainly this event is no exception to that. I think you will find, and I'm told that there are at least 10 states represented today, as far away, I think, even as from Alaska. And I do not believe that you will find a community who is more supportive of their military and the heroes on those bases and those family members than you will find here at Jacksonville and Onslow County. We are unique for a good many reasons. I'm not going to go through and name a number of folks that have already been mentioned, but I will say there's a lot of challenges that we face. You've heard about the hurricanes. Actually, we've experienced 2 hurricanes this past fall, and if you just drive across the county, you'll see there are a lot of blue tarps on buildings, and you'll also see that on the base. The challenges that we face on the base are very similar in many ways to what we experience out in the county. So I think it's appropriate that you're here to talk about where we are and where we think that we can go in the future. But let me just say that this event certainly would not be possible without Joe and all the efforts that he's made. And I think he would also agree that Kim Lejeune, who is the Assistant Deputy for Small Business with Naval Facilities Engineering Command, Mid-Atlantic, both of them have been instrumental in planning this event and making it meaningful for you. And I do believe, as has been the case in the past, that you will find this helpful and beneficial in the future. There are some that I would like to mention. We are pleased here to join forces with the North Carolina Military Business Center, who at the helm is Scott Dorney, and I believe Scott is here with us today somewhere. Scott, thank you for being here. The Small Business and Technology Development Center, also the City of Jacksonville and the Chamber of Commerce, which we've already mentioned. And this facility, which is a very, very nice facility, is provided for us by our Onslow County Commissioners. This is the Onslow County Government Complex, and they have been most gracious to allow us to use this facility for today. It's my understanding, Joe, that the donuts and coffee are provided by North Carolina Works Career Center. Can never overlook those folks. I think the water sponsor is Garnett Blackburn with Under Construction Safety LLC. And also, we are pleased to work with North Carolina Works Center, Career Center and Under Construction Safety LLC for all the support associated with this event. I have said to many people before we got started here, it's my job to formally welcome you. I have done so, and then it is my job to get out of your way and let you accomplish what you came here to accomplish. So, welcome. And have a great day. It's been a pleasure to see you, and I hope that you enjoy your stay here in Onslow County. Thank you.
Just about 2 weeks ago, myself, Camp Lejeune, and literally about 500 of my fellow colleagues in the Department of Defense met for our annual Small Business Training Week in St. Louis, Missouri. One of the constant themes that came out during that conference was the difficulty my colleagues were having with getting partners to facilitate outreach events and to host them. And the answer was to go to your PTAC, and we've leveraged that and talked about them as well. But the whole time I kept thinking, but I have a North Carolina Military Business Center. And they would talk about, communicating and registration and all of the practical details of hosting outreach and getting industry together. And I kept thinking, but I have a North Carolina Military Business Center. I've said it before, and you'll hear me say it many times, that we are uniquely positioned in this state. I interact with companies in all 50 states and many of the territories, and the resources and assets that we have here are not duplicated across the country. They're fairly unique. And at the center of that, I have found to be the North Carolina Military Business Center. And I've had the opportunity to frequently recommend them and say, this is an asset that the state does, is to reach out to you to help you be successful as a business. This is an investment that the state of North Carolina has made to you, and I've not seen that duplicated in the other states. The head of the North Carolina Military Business Center is Scott Dorney, so I welcome you.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. How you doing? All right. So we have 300 seats in here, and we know that some folks aren't going to be able to show up, but I'm just thrilled that we have this many folks here. I think we had 330 folks register. We put out a message and said, hey, we're overbooked, so if you're not going to come, tell us now. So I appreciate everybody that woke up this morning and said, yes, I am actually going to go and show up for this event. So I'm going to continue very briefly the litany of thanks here because I think it's only appropriate. And first of all, I really want to thank the two main government participants in this, and that's Marine Corps Installations East, Camp Lejeune, and NAVFAC. And in the faces, of course, Joe Rozier and Kim Vallone. Listen, this is not just a nice, let's say thank you to them. They do not have to do this. Okay, they could tell you, watch FedBiz Ops, watch Dibs, watch this. You want to come see us, come out onto the installation, and you'll have to do that. This is not a requirement. This does not happen everywhere. So the fact that this is the 9th annual business outreach event on behalf of MCI East, Camp Lejeune, and NAVFAC does not go without notice. So we really appreciate it. So Joe and Kim, on behalf of the business community here, thank you for doing this. We know you don't have to. And that goes for the other agencies as well. A couple of weeks ago, look, the 700-pound gorilla in this room is hurricane recovery. And we know that a lot of you are here because of NAVFAC requirements and hurricane recovery. But MARSOC is part of this. The Naval Medical Center Camp Lejeune is part of this. MCI East Camp Lejeune. So we know that a lot of you are interested in the hurricane stuff and others are not. So we appreciate all the agencies participating. Also want to recognize our other co-host, and that's Coastal Carolina Community College. It seems funny to come to an event here and not have Ann Shaw here. She's a real fixture. But for those of you that don't know, she's also the president of the entire, or the head of the entire Small Business Center Network for North Carolina. So I think that speaks very well of Coastal Carolina, and thanks to their team for making the event a success, and President Heatherly certainly for his support. We've had an office at Coastal Carolina since 2005, so they are committed to this. Listen, I want to thank the governor, the governors, the General Assembly past and present, not just for creating the Military Business Center in 2004, but for creating the best infrastructure in the country to help get small businesses started, help small businesses grow, and help small businesses leverage new markets to include export, the federal market, the defense market. They figured this out a long time ago. Two major state goals are to preserve the military installations in our state. The military has a $66 billion impact on our annual state economy. It's 12% of our state GDP. It's the second largest sector of our state economy, second only to agriculture. I heard it over here. We're working on them, but they're like 85 billion. So, we got a ways to catch up. So maintaining those installations, keeping them viable, eliminating encroachment, and for you, providing the goods and services that our installations need at a reasonable price with the best service is very important to achieving that goal of maintaining our installations. The other goal is growing the military economy in North Carolina. $66 billion is nothing to sneeze at. $6 billion in prime federal contracts executed in North Carolina last year is certainly very significant. And I will tell you, that's a $1 billion increase over what we saw in 2017. And if you think that's because of the hurricanes, that wouldn't be true, because the hurricanes happened in October, and that's the next fiscal year. So we hope 2019 is going to be even better. So growing the military economy in North Carolina, $6 billion in contracts is great, but we want to be a whole lot more than that. And certainly we appreciate what I'm reading right here, because the best sometimes comes in smaller packages. So our state understands that small businesses here in North Carolina play a key role in our state economy, as well as in supporting our installations and growing our military economy. So, best infrastructure in the country, best university system anywhere, best community college system anywhere, best small business center network in the country, our Small Business Technology Development Center, our NCP TAC folks that are here, The Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, we have a cabinet-level agency focused on the military and veterans issues. The North Carolina DD Initiative, the Defense Industry Diversification Initiative, NC State Industry Expansion Solutions. These are all great resources along with the Military Business Center that are focused on one thing, and that is helping your business get started, helping your business grow, and helping your business leverage new markets, including the military. Now, one other group, finally, I got to thank for being here is you, okay? Businesses here in North Carolina and those throughout the region. We know that being in the federal market is never EASY, okay? That is a four-letter word that we never use, okay? It's not easy to get engaged in this market. It's not easy to win work. You have to understand the system. It's like Gordon Rose told me years ago. You have to understand the system wherever you go. You want to work for the county, you want to work for the city, you want to work for the state, you want to do private business, you got to understand the system. But the system is not always easy. So thank you for your persistence and thank you for being engaged. Now I'm gonna charge you with one thing. We've got 3 Military Business Center folks here. Randy Chandler back here. Randy, stand up. He handles subsistence and food issues for us, but he's also close being over there in Cedar Point. And Sue Cranes and Pauline Page, you've already met from the training. If you have any questions today, do not leave here without getting those answered. And I'm going to charge you, because we're going to turn this over to Joe for the real meat of the program. You may not get a lot of time, and you may get some, to ask your questions in this event. Please, this is not the time to get amnesia or laryngitis. We get questions from you every day, okay, about the military program, the hurricane recovery, what's going on. Please challenge these speakers today in a nice, polite way, okay? But make sure that your answers about process get answered. Your questions get answered today. You have the folks here. They've come to speak to you. They're not shy. If they know the answer, they'll tell you. If they don't, they'll work on it. Finally, I want you to talk to us. Talk to Sue, talk to Pauline. Kay Lantrip already told me, get 5 different ideas that we need to be doing to help you, okay? We are your advocate for small business with NAVFAC, with Camp Lejeune, and the other government agencies in the state. So, thank you for being here, but I challenge you not only to get engaged, but to stay engaged. Help us help you, and please enjoy your day today and make sure it pays off for you and your business. Thanks again for being here. Joe?
Guess what? We're done patting ourselves on the back. And now we're going to get into what you really came here for. We're going to start off with Naval Facilities Engineering Command. Now, what you're going to hear is a lot of process, and I want to set the stage now of why that is. You probably are familiar with something that's referred to as a Pareto principle. It's named after some Italian guy who I haven't met yet. Or more commonly, the 80-20 principle. And the general idea, and you've probably heard of it even if you didn't hear it by that title, is that successful businesses, successful operations invest 80% of their time and resources in relationship, and only about 20% in process. The relationships are key. Relationships drive success. And in the real world, that is absolutely true. Guess what? I don't work in the real world. I work behind a fence line in an installation called Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. And I flip that relationship up on its head. And so the programs that I have to work within are process-driven. Relationships have their place. I'm not saying that they're entirely unimportant, but we are 80% process. Successful firms follow that process. I can guarantee you, firms that ignore that try to engage me via relationship first and ignore that process, fail and fail fantastically. It is a brilliant failure that I watch happen on a daily basis. We are process-driven. So you're going to hear a lot about process. Don't ignore that. Capture that information. Even as you try to leverage relationship and make introductions, understand that the key to success in dealing with the federal acquisition system is going to be a process-driven process. So hear that out. The other thing, and Scott alluded to it, you're going to have actual speakers up here from the various agencies on board the base. capture our point of contact information, follow up with us. How many of you have ever tried to reach someone on board the base and never got a return back from your phone call, or you sent the email and it just kind of disappeared into the ether? And so I know we're not the easiest person to reach out to. You're going to hear this morning from people that are inviting you, and I'm scared to say this, but I'm going to say this on their behalf. We're inviting you to reach out and contact us, and so we'll get back with you as quick as we can. But again, to provide more detailed information, to further explain that process, to dispel any myths or concerns you may have, to work with you on that long after this event is over. So all of us will have our contact information as part of our briefs. Capture that information. So without further ado.
Joe, quick, can you mention about the slides?
Good. Slides will be hung up on the North Carolina Military Business Center website, and so when you go back to that site, most of you should have seen that from registration. If not, they're toward the end, but it's ncmbc.us, and then you can tunnel down from there to this event. But all of our agencies will post our slides to them, and they'll be available there. So I know that the screens are not the easiest to see depending on where you sit, and so if you didn't quite see something on the screen, don't worry about, I got to jot it all down. Those slides will be available as it's being presented here. So, Kim?
Good morning. I will let you know right up front, I am technology deficient, so bear with me. Is my slideshow loaded, Joe? No? Did I go backward? See, I told you. Did I go backward? So that.
There you go. There.
Okay. Anyway, good morning. My name is Kimberly Vallone. I am with the small business. I am with NAVFAC Mid-Atlantic, their assistant deputy for small business, and our lead small business deputy actually traveled from Norfolk yesterday. And Andres Medina, if you would please stand up, and if y'all would welcome Andres. He has taken the time to be with you today, and that is very much appreciated. I am not, in addition to Andres and myself, we actually have a couple other NAVFAC representatives in the room. And if Ashley Walton, he is our supervisory engineer, and Ryan McRacken, he is our supervisory services. Ryan, what is your job title? Okay, thank you. And in addition to being technology deficient, this is a hard presentation for me because it is my last presentation with NAVFAC. My last day is Friday, and I will begin a new position up in the Washington Navy Yard with NAVC, and been very fortunate to pick up a promotion. Wonderful opportunity, but I struggled with the decision a lot because I feel here I have the most absolute wonderful job in the world. So just bear with me today. So today I'm going to provide you with an overview of NAVFAC Mid-Atlantic, talk about our small business program, our acquisition tools, and upcoming opportunities and resources. Okay, so NAVFAC's mission and vision. Our mission is we are the Naval Shore Facilities Base Operating Support and Expedition Engineering Systems Command that delivers life cycle, technical, and acquisition solutions aligned to fleet and Marine Corps priorities. And I mean, we need to really keep this in mind as we go forward to support the warfighter. Again, NAVFAC is a Naval Shore and Expeditionary Systems Command, and to pretty much put it in a nutshell, at NAVFAC we procure construction, facilities maintenance, and architect and engineering services. What type of items do we buy? As you can see listed here on this slide, capital improvements, environmental, asset management, public works, contingency engineering, and expeditionary programs. So there's lots of different NACI codes, that we procure for. So at NAVFAC, there are lots and lots of opportunities for those of you that are not familiar with us. On this slide, I wanted to communicate to you that NAVFAC is a global agency. And actually, this slide has a slight mistake in it. If you look in the middle, you see NAVFAC Midwest, and actually NAVFAC Midwest dissolved a few years ago. And as a result of that, NAVFAC Midland actually picked up some of the work from NAVFAC Midwest. But again, I decided to go ahead and use this slide anyway because I just wanted, again, to communicate the fact that we're global. There's NAVFAC Pacific, and we also have NAVFAC Southwest. As far as our mid-Atlantic footprint goes, you can see it's quite a large footprint. When we originated, it was on the East Coast, but again, we picked up work from NAVFAC Midwest, so we've gone out west, and we've picked up Crane and also the Great Lakes area. To give you a glimpse of the business volume of Mid-Atlantic's workload, and just like everyone else is saying, I'm not gonna lie to you, I have a lot of slides in here, a lot of information, and these will be uploaded for you, so don't worry about taking lots of notes. So, one of the things that's very near and dear to my heart is NAVFAC's Office of Small Business Programs. We are a very proactive group, and we are here to support you. We discussed the fact that, there's office. What I wanted to communicate with this slide is the fact that it, all of the different places where NAVFAC operates, there are Office of Small Business. There are small business offices and professionals within these offices that are there to help you. So this slide will provide you. I mean, you're sitting here at a Camp Lejeune event, but you may want to look for work in California one day. So here you are provided those contacts. So currently, our NAVFAC Mid-Atlantic's workload is structured by regions, and we have 3 regions going right now when we group our work, and there's the North region, the Hampton Roads region, and the Marine Corps region. And so I've provided you with points of contact throughout those different areas. And whenever you think about small business, a lot of people do think to themselves that there are small business goals. And yes, at NAVFAC, we do have small business goals. In addition to the primary goals, we also have subcontracting goals. And this is a snapshot that was taken from this past Monday. So you can take a peek at how we're doing with our goals. To be quite honest, this is going to change daily from now until the end of September. We could be all green today, and then tomorrow be in the red, just depending on what contracts were awarded. But last year, we met all of our goals except for the service-disabled veteran-owned small business goal and the woman-owned small business goal. Okay, so as Joe mentioned earlier, you know, in the government, we're all about process. So these are the different types of acquisition tools that we utilize to procure your services. So there's full and open competition that is open where the large businesses are going to be competing with the small businesses. We have set-asides for small businesses. I heard Sue speak earlier about please respond to the sources sought, because if we can have 2 viable small businesses respond to our sources sought, then that empowers the small business specialists like myself to go back to acquisition and say, hey, we need to set this aside to small business. So your participation in those sources sought is critical. Some of the tools that NAFAC has in our toolbox are the multiple award construction contracts, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity A&E contracts, facility support contracts, job order. We have a job order contract. The incumbent on that is Pyramid Contracting. And I mention that because with a lot of these different types of contracts, you want to know who the prime contractor is so that you can approach them for subcontracting opportunities. The base operating support contract is a huge contract where we acquire facilities maintenance services. EMI is the incumbent contractor on that. There's been a lot of buzz with that contract lately because it expires next year. So it's going to take us a while to get that award in place because of the magnificence of that contract. So please track FedBizOps, NECO, and be looking for that upcoming opportunity. And then the Global Contingency Support Contract, the incumbent contractor on that is Environmental Chemical Corporation, otherwise known as ECC. Is Roland Moreau in the room by any chance? Okay, he's a very busy man, and he's the vice president over at ECC. He does have a local office here. He was going to try to attend today, but that's definitely a prime contractor for you to reach out to because they're going to be handling a lot of the Hurricane Florence repair work. So the next, I'm keeping track of my time, and I'm 1 minute over at this point. So I'm really going to buzz through these. And again, so these are forecasting slides that I was able to get my hands on, and actually, so these slides were put together by the operations officer up at NAFAC Mid-Atlantic. MilCon, so you've got fiscal year, whoops, I went backwards, didn't I? So you have fiscal year 18, fiscal year 19, and fiscal year 20. Those MilCons are large construction projects that are appropriated by Congress. Anything $1 million and over goes through that, or $1 billion over may go through that process. And then you have, then we have the unprogrammed MilCons that was on the prior. I told you I'd mess this up. Okay, so the unprogrammed MilCons, and these are large military construction projects. that emerge unexpectedly, maybe was not planned for, but we still need to get that work done. And then the ECIPs, that's the Energy Conservation Investment Program. And that program is a subset of the MILCON projects to fund projects that improve energy resilience. And then we've got MILCONs designated by the different regions. So as you peek through these later, you will see Camp Lejeune is mentioned in these. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we have A&E. The Navy projects that are funded by the Commander of Naval Installation. These are larger maintenance projects. And then we have the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery. These are medical construction projects, hospitals and whatnot. And then the remaining slides are maintenance and repair projects, and you will see Camp Lejeune mentioned in those. So we've, and some of my ending slides are missing, but that's okay because I'm out of time. But essentially what I was going to mention to you, I know a lot of you are sitting here and you're looking for the hurricane repair projects. And unfortunately, at this time, I don't have them down black and white. They're still going through an approval process where we're nearing completion of assessment. They're being evaluated. They're being planned. They're being approved. A couple of you had emailed me prior to the event, and for example, Kim, will you have the info by next week on NAVFAC's temporary unit that I'm hearing about that they're going to stand up to accomplish this hurricane work? I did talk to my local management here at NAVFAC yesterday, and again, unfortunately, we don't have anything solid on that. Even the stand-up of this possible entity to handle this hurricane work, it's probably going to happen, but we just don't have all the details at this time. So maybe by the time Scott, this is a great plug for Scott's FedCon, that's going to be hosted in Wilmington this October. Maybe by then we'll have more answers for you. So, and again, I would be remiss, and I did mention it very briefly, as far as all these hurricane opportunities, again, get with ECC. You can contact Andres for that information, because unfortunately, the next couple of days are going to go by very quickly for me. So it's Andres, ANDRES, my boss is looking at me right now, .Medina, MEDINA, @navy.mil. And, even though he's in Norfolk, he will definitely support you down here. Yes?
This is a small business outreach. And so could you give us a little more information on NAVFAC's approach to supporting small businesses in this community? For example, some of us attended a small business outreach last week with ECC and heard about a significant program that is presumably very soon going out on the street for RFPs for the work here, hundreds of millions of dollars. How is that information being conveyed to the business community, contracting community, small business community? And then the second part of that question is the programs that you've talked about in the slides that we should be able to download. What opportunities are there going to be to expand MAC contracts with small business set-asides?
Yeah, well, first of all, you will definitely, in the imminent future, see activity on FedBizOps for those MACs, because we have MACs in place, but they're nearing capacity. And the Colonel mentioned earlier, 3.5 billion. So we plan to accomplish a lot of that work via the MACs. And to go back to your first question, again, everything is still being planned, but I have heard rumor of a possible NAFAC Industry Day. I don't know if Andres, if you've heard anything to that effect.
If I could just follow up, we saw a list at the presentation last week, and those RFPs apparently have been identified, and there was a schedule that had them going out over the next 6 weeks, or thereabouts, under the GCSC contract.
And again, it's my understanding that there will be an imminent NAFAC Industry Day. So.
Well, I guess to further that question, though, is this information is being made available to large businesses in some form or fashion. And as part of NAFAC's outreach to small businesses, can you speak specifically to how those opportunities, if they are actually opportunities, how that information will be conveyed to small businesses? And then with regards to the MACs that you're considering, will there be small business MACs as part of the overall MAC program? And again, I'm just speculating, but in my opinion, there's going to be all types of MACs to be able to handle the workload. For example, currently, I think 2 of the MACs that we have are reserved for large business. All the other MACs that we have are for small business. There's a MAC that's set aside for the service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. There's MACs set aside for the 8As. So we embrace small businesses when we do these MACs. And as far as how all of this communication will be, my position is going to be vacant. So, I can't give you a solid plan, but I know Andres is going to be at the helm up in Norfolk. And again, I have heard, and actually, Scott, aren't you working with NAFAC Mid-Atlantic on an Industry Day initiative?
Yeah, so I'll just mention that, and I don't want to get anything out prematurely, but we are working with NAFAC on an Industry Day specific to the hurricane work. We've gone through several iterations on dates and location. You should probably anticipate that in, I'm out there, June, July timeframe. So watch for that, notice about that, same place you found out about this. So, but to Kay's point, and I don't want to, look, NAFAC is here, they're talking to you. Andres is here, Kim Valone is here. They're going to communicate your interest. We understand they've got $3.5 billion worth of work to do. They've got global contingency contracts in place. It's obviously a large bulk, a lot of that work is going to go there. It's going to be incumbent on us to help you to connect with those large business contractors that are competing for that work through those RFPs, but also to advocate to NAFAC, as we did in 2007, on your capacity to do a lot of the work during the big Milcon wave that came through back then. So I will tell you, can't promise anything, but we are going to make it very clear to NAFAC that we have great small business capacity in this state that can do a lot of this work, whether it's in the subcontract capacity to their global contingency MAC, whether it's in standalone MAC, or whether it's standalone competition for contracts. We will make that very clear throughout this process, and ultimately the decision is theirs and how they're going to contract for this work. But I think the message is clear, and they wouldn't be here if they didn't have confidence in small business to do that work. Am I missing anything, Sid? Does that help?
Okay, so I've managed to get us off track with the time schedule. And but anyway, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Again, I think I had one of the best jobs in the world. Thank you.
Next up will be a representative from Headquarters and Support Battalion to discuss that perennial favorite topic of ours, base access. So.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I do feel underdressed, so forgive me. My name is First Lieutenant Marini. I am the Acting Operations Officer for H&S Battalion Mickey East. I am standing in place for Major Campbell, who is the subject matter expert. Unfortunately, there was a scheduling conflict, so I'll be standing in for him. So I'm going to be going over the process briefly regarding how you're going to be accessing the base once you've been awarded contracts, or if you're a small business interested in getting access to the base here. So there's three items, or I have three goals. Really, I want to make sure we have met by the close of my time here. So I want to make sure you have provided the website location of the base access order. I want to make sure you have the actual physical location of the contractor's vetting office. That's a name of the actual area you're going to need to get familiar with. And lastly, obviously, I'm going to hit on the wave tops of the actual process. So again, the contractor vetting office is located at the Wilson Gate. If you all are familiar with the base at all, there is an office there off to the side of the gate, and you will, that will be your point of contact for this matter. Looks like they're trying to catch up the slide here. They might have a map for you or something. Okay, maybe not. Okay, so at the contractor vetting office, you're going to be looking for something called or looking to get something called a DBIDS temporary pass or a DBIDS credential. So the DBIDS credential is it's a pass for business that you're likely going to be conducting over 121 days. If you're going to be conducting business for anything less than 120 days, or less than 121 days in this case, it's going to be the DBIDS temporary pass. So again, the contractor vetting office is at the Wilson Gate. If you're looking for a building number, there should be a sign, but the actual building number is TT TAC 13. It's open Monday through Friday, 06 to 1400, obviously with the exception of holidays. And special events as well. You're going to need to bring two valid forms of ID. Typically, your driver's license is required. However, some other forms of ID that you can bring is your passport, social security card, birth certificate, and there's about 10 other items you can bring as well. That's also detailed in the base access order. So if you're a contractor, you're going to want to bring the prime contract with you. If you're a subcontractor, you're going to want to bring your subcontract as well as the prime contract as well, both referencing the primary contractor's phone number and information. Once your personnel, either yourself or your employees, have received the DBIDS credential or temporary pass, they're going to need to retain that on themselves the entire time they're on the base. It is government property, so take note of that. Anytime the employees are switched out, terminated, you have new employees, they're going to have to go through the process. However, if they already have the DBIDS pass, they are going to need to turn that in if they have been terminated. All right, if you're a business owner or a contractor with numerous employees, an easier way to aid the process of getting those employees on base is with something called a letter of authorization, which is also detailed in the order. Essentially, this is a company letterhead document that's going to need to be accompanied with the contract, and you're going to want to specify what personnel you want to essentially start pushing through the process. as well as the days and times they're expected to access the base. And again, that's just to assist us in the process of getting them through. A sponsor is required, so whether it's a contractor or a small business, you're going to need to be aware of who the sponsor is. Generally, the government entity awarding the contract or the access to the base is going to be the sponsor. So just take note of that. Also, other things of note, we are going to be pushing a campaign of registering vehicles by 3 June. So I know that's coming up soon, and that's very short notice, but just be aware that that campaign is in motion. And what we're going to need to see is the original actual physical registration, the insurance, and the driver's license, at least the driver's license of a operator of the vehicle. Just of note, as I know there's going to be a lot of contractors, possibly even small businesses from out of state, it's okay if it's not North Carolina insurance as long as it meets or is greater than the North Carolina state laws. Once you've gone through the registration process for your DBIDS credentials and your vehicles, just expect your employees and their vehicles to be maintained professionally, make sure they're clean, and make sure you update us with any changes at all. Obviously, professionalism is always expected of Marines and any civilians on base. And I'm going to stick around after this. It sounds like you guys are doing breaks every hour or so. So if you have any questions that are kind of deeper in the weeds, I'll be sticking around. I actually have the base access order here. So if for some reason you don't have access to the internet, which I guess some people might not for some strange reason, but I actually physically have the order here. So if anybody needs to make copies, they can do so. I'm also going to have I got a couple sheets of paper with contact information with key role players, and is the actual website address as well. So that being said, thank you for your time.
Were there any quick questions for the lieutenant before he skies off to the side? Like I said, he's not going away. He'll be here the rest of the morning, but were any quick questions before we press on? All right. The schedule says we're going to do a networking break, but as Kim mentioned, we've blown over our schedule. I'm going to just invite you that if you need to step out and take care of yourself, you're welcome to, but we will press on. I won't be totally offended if you stand up and walk out. And I also have to commend you. I have not heard one cell phone go off yet this morning. That's probably a record. I know I've just jinxed myself, now all sorts of phones, but I commend, we didn't even have to warn you ahead of time to turn off your phone, so thank you. Next up will be a representative from Marine Forces Special Operations Command. Here's the mouse and you want I can do it. I can just do the slides. He's got it for me. All right.
Good morning. I am Major Joe Common. I am the Chief of Contracting at Marine Forces Special Operations Command. So first and foremost, thank you for attending this event. We look forward to this because we're all about competition. How do we get competition? By advising small businesses on opportunities that are out there. So we look forward to your questions. As we go through, I want to make sure we create time so that we can have some feedback back and forth. We can answer any kind of outstanding questions. But before I do so, I want to introduce two very smart people. I have my procurement chief, Master Sergeant Rawls, here, and I also have Mr. Michael Paquette. He is my small business representative, so you may find yourself interacting with him a lot. Next slide. Sorry. So agenda, what I want to talk about is what is this soft thing? So we have this Marine Special Operational Forces. What is it that we do, and how are we different from some of the Mickey East or possibly from NAVFAC? So we'll spend a little bit of time on building that understanding, and then we'll do a short description of what MARSOC is, what are different components, and what are we comprised of. We'll talk a little bit about how we buy, what it is that we buy, and what we spend a preponderance of our resources on. Then we'll have some recommendations and end with some POCs that you can reach out to if needed. Next slide, please. So what is this SOCOM thing? What is this beast that we have here? So we're talking about SOCOM, Special Operations Command. So my headquarters is out of Tampa, Florida. And we are broken up to organizations such as USASOC, so United States Army Special Operations Command. You have the Navy SEALs, and you also have Air Force. Here's a Marine Corps' dedication of forces to the special operations. As you can see at that pie, we are the smallest piece of that pie, right? So SOCOM spends about $4.3 billion, and that was in FY18. And MARSOC in FY18 spent about $18.3 million, just our office. As a component, we spent about $50 million, but they were through some strategic type contracts, which we'll talk a little bit about. What I can tell you is, as we look at some of our numbers, right now we're about $16, $17 million, and we expect that this year we'll probably do around 24, 25, and it's going to increase. Why is it increasing? Because we're starting to take more contract actions in-house instead of going to other strategic opportunities. So as you look, I highly recommend you look at our office code H92257 on FedBiz Ops, and you can find some of the resources, some stuff that we're looking for. Next slide. So what is this thing? MARSOC, right? Marine Special Operations Command. How was it split up? So we're basically split up into three, right? So as you see our contracts we're looking for, we have a training center. What is that? That's a school. That's what we send all of our folks through, assessment and selection to become those operators and those enablers. And so what makes that unique is we have contracts that we solicit that we're looking for people to augment our capabilities in a fashion of training. What else do we have? We have MRR, Marine Raider Regiment. Those are our operators. So those are the gents that are going down range doing some of those special missions, and that underneath that Joint Force Commander. And so you'll see some requirements that we push out there will be to augment our special operators. So why does that make it unique? Is because we do ask for some special skill sets. So you may find that we want someone with soft experience on your team providing us services, right? So that we don't have to train them. They come in with that unique capability, if that makes sense. And then the last one we have is our support group. Those are the enablers, the communicators, your engineers, your logisticians. Those are the folks that go down the range with them and provide them with support. All three of those enterprises, along with that headquarters, is what makes up MARSOC. What's also unique is we're split. We're split for the East Coast, where the preponderance of our forces are, and we also have an element that's on the West Coast. So when you're looking out there, we have opportunities that are on the West Coast as well to enable our operators. In addition to some of the different training hubs, such as we go down to Kentucky, maybe in South Carolina, we have different locations that we're looking for, not just here in the Camp Lejeune area. So flexibility there. Next slide. So what do we buy? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a transition to some of the large type IDIQs, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, right? Because we find ourselves doing the same action over and over. And as you know, it becomes redundant. And we're trying to capture back some of our resources. So as you look out there, you'll find that we're trying to solicit for some of these larger types, such as marriage retreats, right? So we do these chaplain retreats about 4 or 5 times a year. So we're looking for something that's going to extend over probably a 5-year period. What makes it unique, you may think to yourself, well, doesn't the Marine Corps have something like that you could tap into? Well, with our authorities, because ours come from the special operations side of the house, right? We typically do not go through the Marine Corps existing contracts. We create our own, if that makes sense, because there's some nuances with special operation forces. And so where can you find us? GSA, eBuy, right? FBO, H92257. You can find some of the things that we're looking for out there, and you can contact us. Next slide. And so how is that broken up? So we've got about 75% services, 25% supply. So when we're talking about services, we're talking about those long enabling actions, right? So we're doing direct action, for example. We need some contractors to come in and augment our forces, right? We also have this thing that's called a contract logistics support contract. We don't have enough folks out there to do some of the logistics, so we have to bring in contractors to help augment our staff. So we rely heavily on service contracts at SOCOM, and then subsequently at MARSOC, right? Next slide. So some recommendations, highly recommend. If you have a slick sheet, what do I mean by slick sheet? If you have a description on what your company does, please provide it to us. We have an email address so that we can add you to our Rolodex. So as we roll out these different, and do with our source of salt, right, we can make sure that we include you in this conversation and so that we can have you as part of that competition. We do vendor days as well. So if we have your information, when we have that vendor day, we can invite you to the table, if that makes sense. We want you to be part of this because we want competition. I do not like having one vendor and I've got, sure, I'm underneath the SAT, right? I only need one offerer, but I want more folks to be part of this so I can drive down prices, if that makes sense, and give everyone an opportunity to be part of our team, if that makes sense. So then SWIMS, I'll touch briefly on that because it's going to go away. It's called a SOCOM-wide mission support contract. Some of you may be aware, some may not. That's a contract that is held over at the SOCOM headquarters. It's about to expire, and it's going to be about, what, $1 billion is the new one? It's about $1 billion is that new contract that's coming out. What is that? It's a service-specific contract for training and support. Please reach out to us if you're interested in trying to figure out how you can possibly place a bid on that IDIQ. Reach out to us. That's going to be a phenomenal opportunity that you can support the soft enterprise and subsequently MARSOC as well. So I highly recommend it. Next slide. So your point of contacts, so that's my email. Do not mind if you email me. That's my phone number as well. Mr. Mike Paquette, that's my deputy, Matt Sergeant Rawls, and then I have my other contracting officer up there as well. I don't think I have my organizational email address up. Is it up there? I don't think so. But if you reach out to me or to one of the guys here in the office, we can provide you with that so you can communicate directly with us. If that makes sense. Do I have any questions?
Yeah, could you state again that you mentioned earlier it was a $1 billion project?
$1 billion. So there's a $1 billion large IDIQ, which will go in place in 2021. And that's going to be a SOCOM level contract that's out there. And the purpose of it is to provide services, so training support, educational support is what it does for us.
You want to look for SOCOM Core Services Support. It's an SCS is the acronym that they're using for that one. Go ahead and stand. There should be source of SOTs or I think they're coming out with the initial information. The RFQ won't go out until probably late in the fall or early, before December.
The draft hit the streets, right? The draft hit the streets. The draft.
I don't know if the draft RFQ went out or not. I'm not sure.
Excuse me, sir. It's hard to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I was mentioning that the $1 billion contract that SOCOM is in the works of recompeting. It's called the SOCOM Core Services Support Contract, SCS. So if you look for that on FedBiz Ops, that's where there may be lots of subcontracting opportunities. They also may have some of it set aside for small business. I'm not sure of their total acquisition strategy, but I believe they've broken it up into different tiers, and there is some small business set asides as well.
I have a question. I'm an online training company located in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Is this contract that's going to expire, is it going to be a subcontract or is it going to be a full contract? And how do I get access to the information about the contract and possibly partner with a larger company for the contract?
As I mentioned,
Thank you.
As I mentioned, sir, it's the SOCOM Core Services Support is what it's being called, sir. And if you go out on FedBiz Ops, I suspect if you search by those keywords, you'll find it. Or also you can use the SOCOM's RUC H92222, okay? Ours is H92257. The SOCOM headquarters down in Tampa is H92222. And that's where you'll see the information out there under that. Yes, sir, under federal business opportunities. And if you'd like, sir, you could give me a card and I'll coordinate with you, let you know.
Hey, follow up to that, is there a current SCS contract and is there a list on the SOCOM website who the primes are?
Yes, sir. I don't know if there's a list of the primes. There is a current SWIMS contract, the major mentioned, SOCOM-wide mission support. It was a 5-year IDIQ that was released 2015, I think it was. And so it's due to expire in 2020, and that's why they're starting the process again.
So SCS going to replace SWIMS?
Correct, yes, sir. And so again, it's SOCOM-wide mission support. There are several, again, that one was broken up into different tiers. There's 4 large businesses have a tier A, several, I think there's 32 small businesses that were awarded IDIQ contracts for training and services support. And then there's also a service disabled veteran owned for some OCI type contracting activities and options.
So to answer his question about how to team with other contracts on the SCS, a good thing to do would be to go to the SWIMS contract, find out who the current primes are.
Yes.
Chances are they'll compete for the SCS contract.
Yes. Yep.
Just to mention, we spent about $40 million in addition to the 18 we spent last year on swims, just so you know. So we offload through that strategic contract. Yes, ma'am.
So the slick sheet that you were talking about is different from the capability statement?
No. Same thing.
Okay.
Capability statement, same thing.
Okay.
I'm a Navistar contact on the East Coast, and I was wondering, as far as in-house procurement, is there something you specifically focus on? Because I've noticed more businesses are doing more in-house. They're reaching out to other businesses to procure their parts.
No, so what we try to do as we come up with new capabilities from our required activity, we try to do these sources sought, or we do these vendor days, and we try to advertise that out to those who may have, if they give a slick sheet, or may fit that capability set that we're looking for, if that makes sense. So some of the things that we have right now is, such as it's going to be coming out on FBO, is our chaplain retreat. So that's a big one, and that's going to be over $1 million. And we're looking for a 5-year, long-term company that can provide us with that capability. But that's typically what we do. So if we have a new capability that's coming online, we take slick sheets, and we're serious about that. Please send it to us. And we invite folks to come to the table, give a brief to our requiring activities, those who actually need it, the end users. And also to create awareness, because sometimes our ideas sound really good, right? Then we bring in actual small businesses, and it doesn't sound so good because we don't know what we're doing. And so we go back to the drawing table as well to try to recraft this thing before it goes to the streets. And then you have an opportunity to go on FBO and place a bid on it. You actually understand the requirement. So we're trying to make sure we're trying to sustain that and then get better. But please give us slick sheets. That's one of the things that we look forward to every time we come here. More vendors.
One more question for Marsoc.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
I knew I was going to jinx myself previously. I actually heard my first cell phone go off. At least it was on vibrate, but I did hear one, so I shouldn't have said anything. So, next up, we are honored to have a representative from Naval Medical Center, Camp Lejeune. So. Left-click the mouse. It just needs to be on that roll.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. Good morning. I am Melissa Carpenter. I am a contracting officer at Naval Medical Center, Camp Lejeune, and I'm very glad to be here. This is the first time I've spoken at one of the events. We usually have a small business representative come in, but this year I said I will go ahead and do it. Hopefully I can take some questions and give you some valuable information at the end of the presentation or during it, however you want to work it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about who we are as the medical center, what me and my team purchase, some of the mandatory sources that we're required to procure from, the methods of procurement that we use at our local office, and where to find our solicitations. Okay, so we are a level 3 trauma center. We've got a current staff of about 1,184 active duty, 723 civilians, and 648 contractors working within the confines of the actual brick and mortar facility. We have a beneficiary population of 141,000, which is which is tremendous. So some of the services that we provide both inpatient care and outpatient care. You can see some of the breakdowns of the different services within those different categories of care. So I'm not going to read it off to you. If you have any questions about the services that we provide, you can certainly ask. Okay, so what we purchased in 2018, I thought this was important because even though we're a medical center, we're not only purchasing medical equipment and things that have to do with like specific patient care or surgeries and things like that. You can see that, I mean, we buy flags and website subscriptions, tools like mechanic tools, and we have our own mechanic shop there located on the facility. We buy like spot coolers, anything that's like related to like personal property, more so than real property. NAVFAC handles all of our real property procurements. You can see storage cabinets, display boards for like actually any of the areas. We got all kinds of display boards, electronic ones, ones that display like pictures and wayfinding and things such as that. So there's a list of some of the most popular things that we bought last year. Okay, so we do have some degree of regulation regarding where we go to procure things. BUMED, the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery, actually mandates that we use these two forms of electronic commerce, ECAT and Prime Vendor. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but actually, I was telling some folks here that I think it was 2 years ago, I met a gentleman and I talked to him about ECAT, and he called me about a year later and said, "Thank you for the information. My products are now available on ECAT, and it's phenomenal." So, but the caveat to that is ECAT and Prime Vendor are really concentrated in like medical equipment, accessories, and consumables and things such as that. So, you know, if your product line is not focused on those particular areas, then those would not be avenues that you would be interested in. And also, for our furniture procurements, we are required to procure from a Navy furniture BPA holder. There's about 150 companies that are on the Navy Furniture BPA, but we are required to procure at all dollar values, even under the micro-purchase threshold, from a Navy Furniture BPA holder. And then I just wanted to throw on there our DLA document services. That's kind of a big one because, you know, we're always having to produce things, bulletins, pamphlets, and things such as that. So we are mandated to go to DLA document services for our printing, duplication services, and the rental of duplication equipment. Okay, so I wanted to speak a minute on Prime Vendor. As I mentioned, that is one of our mandatory sources for medical equipment, instruments, and supplies and consumables and things such as that. The Prime Vendor contracts are managed by Defense Logistics Agencies. I have nothing to do with how those opportunities are solicited or contractors that are vetted to be a part of those contracts. I just know that our command is required to procure from those methods, Prime Vendor and ECAT, if what we need is available through those avenues. I did contact a contracting officer from DLA that works in the Prime Vendor section and one that works in the ECAT section, and they actually, I was like, okay, well, if somebody says, hey, how do I get involved in this, you know, while I'm at the conference, they told me exactly what you would need to know, and I put it on the slide for you. So I don't know any of the details. I just know the information that they provided, and actually when they were giving me the information, I sat at my desk and they were like, you know, click here, click there, this is where they need to look, and I presented it here and I actually went through, so it does work. And you can see through Prime Vendor, some of the things that, that are offered are like sutures, bandages, syringes, hospital gowns, infusion pumps, pulse, I can't pronounce that word, so I'm going to skip that one, exam tables, hospital carts, and things such as that. So those are things that we procure through prime vendor if what we need is available through that avenue. Same with, so here is the the next slide that goes along with the first one that talks about the different clicks I was telling you about and where to go to navigate through the DLA website if you're interested in a prime vendor opportunity. Okay, and then once again, ECAT. So ECAT, the programs offered through ECAT are dental, equipment, laboratory, optical, and there's a couple of other ones, but if you go to the medical.dla.mil site, you will see the different programs or categories that are offered through ECAT and how to sell your product line through that avenue. Okay, so when once we've exhausted the mandatory sources, you know, we need something and we find that we can't buy it through a mandatory source, then we use the government commercial purchase card or a contract. Okay, so locally at our command, procurements below the micro purchase threshold, like I said, are purchased through the government commercial purchase card. The thresholds, the micro purchase thresholds are $2,000 for construction, $2,500 for services, and $10,000 for supplies. We were excited that the micro purchase threshold recently did go up to the $10,000 mark from $5,000. So that was exciting. So if your product line is more of a low dollar value for the government to procure with the purchase card, the company does not have to have an active SAM registration. However, procurements above the micro purchase threshold, you are required to have an active SAM registration. And registration in SAM gives you that cage code number, and that cage code number is very important with regard to how your company gets paid. Whenever you're awarded a government contract, invoices shall be paid through WAF, the Wide Area Workflow. And then with all of the acquisitions above the micro purchase threshold, we go to our small business professional and let them know what we're recommending as far as, we look to the market, we look for small businesses always. And if we identify that there are, I believe Kim even mentioned it, if there are 2 or more small businesses, then we absolutely set aside for small business. We go out to the marketplace, we look on FPDS NG, we look on GSA eBuy and seek out small businesses. And if we do identify 2 or more, then we will set aside our requirements for small businesses. And then where we solicit, our open market opportunities are solicited on federal business opportunities. Whenever we find that we can procure through GSA or against a federal supply schedule, our solicitations are posted on eBuy. And then for our IT hardware and software requirements, we post on NASA Soup. Okay, that is all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me? We don't. We do small business. Small business, yes.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question was, were there set aside specifically for 8A, Hub Zone, woman-owned business, and it's all?
It's small business. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Does your office procure any professional services such as architectural engineering or construction?
We're a NAVSUP office, so we're not. So anything that we need over the $2,000 mark goes to NAVFAC. Right, yes. So the answer is kind of yes and no, depending on the dollar value. Less than 2,000, which will get you very little with regard to construction. Yes, so.
Ma'am, would you please scroll back to the previous slide? I saw you had the NASA.
Yes.
I've been looking on FedBizOps a lot for equipment type of RFQs, but I guess I should also be looking at the NASA soup.
Yeah, so NASA Soup is companies that offer IT hardware and software. And we are mandated to solicit on NASA Soup for those types of requirements. So we will go there first. We will not put those opportunities on eBuy or FedBizOps. They must go to NASA Soup.
Thank you,
Right.
One last question for the Naval Medical Center. No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we've saved the last for last. So I applaud you for hanging in this long. Hopefully there's some key takeaways already as I preempted and warned you that we're process dependent and that's the system that we have to work within. And you've heard different iterations and versions of that process. And hopefully you took note that agency to agency, activity to activity, that process will vary. So that the same approach that the successful with one activity will not work with the others. From NAVFAC, you heard that they're really literally at the beginning of responding to our post-Florence needs. The Marine Corps is still actively trying to solicit the funding for that because nothing will happen without funding. And so they're in the beginning of that. But you also heard that one of their first steps will be to leverage existing capacity. So, as you know, from an outward appearance, yeah, it may look like ECC and others have an inside track. This is just NAVFAC leveraging the existing capacity before they go back out and compete. But I know they'll do that as well. You heard from MARSOC and his open invitation to give them the capability sheets, give them the slicks. You didn't hear that from everybody, but you heard that from him. Drowned him in those capability sheets. He asked for them, give them to him. That's part of his process. You heard a lot about mandatory sources and places that the Naval Medical Center has to utilize as they're going about getting their goods and services. Again, different process, but that's the process that they're having to work with under. Successful vendors will follow that. And then we get to Marine Corps Installations East. A little bit about who we are, what we buy, our buying environment, and I will touch on some keys to success with my command. So, a familiar sight as you're driving down Highway 24, the little half wall and the Eagle Globe and anchor. A critical mistake that so many do, and frankly, many of us who work and live within the base do as well, is to think of Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune as a single unified entity. That would be a mistake. We're probably better analogous to Game of Thrones. There's a bunch of competing fiefdoms and kingdoms fighting it out for resources, for personnel, for time and attention, just yelling up and down, look at me, look at me. If you want to do business with us and think about this event here this morning, all of us work aboard Camp Lejeune. All those various processes, various authorities, various people that we all answer to, all reside upon this base. And you didn't hear from everybody. A closer representation of the buying activity that's on board this installation is here. And I'll just read off some of those. Some you've heard, NAVFAC, or the regional officer in charge of construction, prime contractors like ECC and others that are there. There's a Coast Guard Special Mission Detachment hanging off our backside there. They're there. What they do, I don't know. They won't tell me. But they're there. They're special. It says so in their name. They're there. I don't buy for them. I don't solicit for them. They do that separate and independent from me. Marine Corps Community Services, who could not be here this afternoon, but they buy and solicit and support all the fun activities for Marines and sailors aboard the base, as well as for their families. If it involves breaking and killing, it's probably mine or MARSOC. If it's helpful and constructive and builds up people, it's probably MCCS. They take care of the exchanges, the clubs, basically if it's fun and positive. Marine Corps Systems Command is the principal buyer of goods and services for the Marine Corps. They're located up in Quantico, Virginia. But they buy literally millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of goods and services that end up getting sent or employed here on board our base. But their contracting office, all their point of contacts, all that contracting is actually done up in Virginia on our behalf. The Navy has the Space and Warfare Systems Command, SPAWAR. Again, provide a lot of goods and services, particularly services for the Marine Corps and for Camp Lejeune. That a lot of the goods that they buy end up here, they're located elsewhere. You heard from MARSOC. We have a Wounded Warrior Battalion that does independent contracting. You heard from the Naval Medical Center. We have our own Department of Defense educational system, school system, kindergarten through high school. Almost everybody overlooks this private school system that resides aboard the base. Schools buy stuff. They buy all sorts of stuff, goods and services, and I'm not their buyer. They buy for themselves, and so they're located there. We have a Fisher House. If you're familiar with the Fisher House, it's a kind of like a hotel for family members that have critically ill service members. They come on board the base. They can stay there. They're close to their loved ones. We have a Fisher House. Fisher House spends money. They buy things. They're located on board the base. That's a private commercial entity that's there on board my base. There's opportunities there. Key takeaway is don't look at Camp Lejeune as this single unified entity. Recognize that there's a couple of key and major contracting activities that are there aboard the base. You've heard from them this morning. There's triple that number. Some on board the base, most that are not, that buy literally millions of dollars of goods and services, send it here. So your next best opportunity may not be in your backyard, may be somewhere across the country for something that will end up getting used here. My command, Marine Corps Installations East, we are a regional headquarters supporting these bases and stations up and down the eastern seaboard. Of course, with Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune being an 800-pound gorilla within the command. Currently headed up by Brigadier General Watson, and as you heard, now Major General Alford is coming back here in the summer. In addition to those bases and stations, these are the major tenants aboard those bases that we support, that even fall outside of the normal umbrella of Marine Corps Installations East. Marine Forces Command up there in Virginia, Marine Forces South down in Miami, Florida, as well as the operating forces that are here. When the operating forces, the warfighter is here at home in garrison, I'm his buyer. When he goes downrange, he takes uniformed contracting personnel with him, and there's a whole detachment that stands up. But when they come home, their authority is taken away, and so all those operating requirements for the division, for the wing, for the MEF headquarters itself, run through my office. What we buy, it is a hodgepodge of everything. Professional support services, IT services, a ton of furniture. Because how many of you know there's not a piece of furniture that has been built yet that's marine-proof? People have made that claim. They have, and with a serious look on their face, stood in my office and said, "This is marine-proof." And after I get done laughing at them and pick myself up off the ground and says, "No, it's not." We will drop that piece of furniture off the roof of a building to prove that the people. Marines have done that. We don't tell them to do that, but they'll do that anyway. They will tie that piece of furniture to the back of a tactical vehicle and drag it down the road. I can assure you that nothing you built furniture-wise is marine-proof, but people try to tell me that anyway. So we end up buying a lot of furniture. Cellular services, chemicals for pools, plants, just all sorts of stuff. Tactical training support, it is amazing. We obviously have in-house pipelines to train our Marines and sailors to do their mission, to go forth and support our nation. Many times the tasks that we have exceed even that very capable in-house training support that we have. And we actually end up contracting out for a lot of training support. The tactical stuff that you may ask yourself, don't Marines do that on their own? They do, and then we need it even more. So there's a lot of training support. Aviation maintenance has become a growing area of contract needs that we've been doing out of my office, as my office has gotten increasingly involved in buying contracts to support our flying aircraft. It's often easy to talk about the things that we don't buy, and you've heard that from representatives already. I don't buy medical support. But another one that gets overlooked is that our office doesn't do proof of concept or new things. I've had a number of vendors will make appointments, come see me. I've got a thing. I think it's perfect for you. I'm convinced it's exactly what the Marines and sailors need. I've developed it. They'll bring samples. They want to rub something on my skin, some chemical. I'll hit them and send them away. They're convinced they got the perfect product or service for us, which is great, but I'm not the buyer for that proof of concept for that new item. That's my counterpart up at Quantico, Marine Corps Systems Command. They're the ones that will evaluate new items, test it out for me, and then come back and tell the rest of the Marine Corps, yeah, this is good to go, you're cleared to buy this, or stay away, this is not that approved item. So we do have a place to do that. You contact me, I will send you up to the Quantico, give you those points of contact. So, but don't be offended. The reason I'm sending you up there is that level of procurement is done for us by Marine Corps Systems Command. Principally, our office lists our requirements on federal business opportunities. There's this common mythology that if you're seeing a requirement for the first time on FBO, you're late and there's no point bothering. How many of you have heard that before? So, I won't speak for every activity, but for our office, for Marine Corps Installations East, that is absolutely false. That is probably where you will first learn of my opportunities. We are a relatively small contracting office of roughly about 15, 20 people, depending on what day of the week it is. And we churn through, depending on the fiscal year, between 2,500 and 3,000 contract actions per year. We are a contracting sweatshop. Most of those we'll see and process and have an award within 30 days from the first time we've seen that. Have no idea that it's coming, get it, process it, market research, award it, and get it that good a service, at least get the contract awarded in a 30-day time frame. And so there's not a lot of warning that my requirements are coming down range. In that regard, I'm the extreme version of that. My colleagues are able to give you a little bit more leadway. Certainly in the construction realm, they don't operate that way. They have to give you more leadway. We're doing rapid procurement in my office. The environment, and we touched on that already. Requirements are generally for immediate or near future use. Long-term, permanent, service-wide requirements run through our office up there, Marine Corps Systems Command up there in Quantico. That's the type of things that they're doing. I'm supporting the trigger puller, that war fighter, and he has an immediate need. He's literally about to get on a plane or a boat next week, and he just figured out, oh my goodness, I need fill in the blank. He comes to us with his hair on fire and says, I need you to buy this, and I needed it yesterday. We'll work with him, get as much time as we can out of him, because if everything is urgent, how many we know, if everything's urgent, nothing's urgent. So we'll work with him, prioritize as best we can, get that out on FBO, market that, and meet his needs. But our requirements tend to be short-fused. They tend to be relatively low dollar. FY18, roughly 90% of them were below $250K. Below what the Federal Acquisition System calls a simplified acquisition threshold. They're relatively low dollar. And that's where that 30-day requirement comes from, because one of the DoD mandates that items in that dollar threshold, you're supposed to get in and out of the door in 30 days. And that's 90% of what we see. It's not everything. We have a few multi-million-dollar buys as well, and our solicitations run a split between 50-50 goods and services. But a lot of them are low-dollar buys that we're just churning through. So that quick response times are the norm. We buy from strangers, people we've never met, we have no prior relationship with. Again, when I started off talking about that Pareto principle, that 80-20, and the commercial world, the real world, the world that you live and work in on a normal basis, the relationship is key. Relationship leads to opportunities, to contracts. My office does not work that way, can't, given the volume and work that we have to push through. So we're handcuffed to that process. And so we buy from people we've never met, never had a meeting, never had an office call, never gotten a capability sheet. We buy from absolute perfect strangers. So that begs the question, how do we evaluate these strangers to meet our goods and services? That bottom line there on the screen, I'll read it to you because I realize you can't see it from where you're sitting. Keys to success, I call them the 4 Ps. Profile, your proposal, your past performance, and your price. Profile is your profile and a system for award management, sam.gov. It is probably the first or second most important thing you can do in doing business, certainly with my office, but I would argue and make the point that in doing business with the federal government. It is your legal representation to us in the federal government. It tells me who you are, much more so than a capability sheet, your web page, catalog, anything else that you produce. I'm going to immediately go back to sam.gov because that's where my buyers are going to go. It establishes your eligibility to do business with the government. We utilize it in almost every phase of the acquisition process, from market research to source selection. If you win a contract with us, part of your SAM profile, we actually print out and insert it in the contract file. DFAS, the Defense Finances Services, uses your SAM profile to affect payment to you. And so from beginning to end, your SAM profile is utilized and viewed and reviewed and used in the federal acquisition process. If we can't find you in SAM, effectively, you don't exist. And my buyers, again, in that environment, don't have a lot of time to hunt for you. When vendors make an appointment to come see me, the first thing I do, or at least as part of that appointment, hey, let's take a minute and pull up your SAM profile. Let's make sure I can find you in SAM. Almost 50% of the people that come into my office, we find some issue. A lot of times, I just can't find them in SAM. You know you're in there. You're aware where you're at, but that doesn't help me find you. Can I find you? Can a buyer find you and find you easily? And so we will go down that road and pull that string to make sure that you're visible to federal buyers. Because again, the process has stopped dead in the water if I can't find you in SAM. So profile answers the question, are you eligible to do business with the federal government? Your proposal, in answer to the specific question, can you meet the immediate need that I'm soliciting for? Past performance, how well have you met that need in the past? You know, you're saying you can do it. Can you give me proof? Again, because you're a stranger to me, and I don't have time to order the means to establish a relationship. So what's your proof that you've done a good job? I need to make this contract work the first time, not resolicit and do that, because now I'm impacting on the mission of a Marine that needs to go downrange. So I need to do this right and do it the first time. Price. Price is always a factor in our contracts. Sometimes it is the factor. But we owe you a clear explanation on how much weight we put on price. So then there's a four-letter word that we use far too often in the federal government, and I know most of you hate it, but it's LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable. And my office does do a lot of LPTA. Less now so on the services side, because we're increasingly finding that is not a great tool to utilize on services, but you do see it on products. When we advertise something as LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable, we're sending that loud and clear signal, price is king. We're establishing, there's a threshold for technical acceptability that we've established, and above that, the lowest price will win. If not, then we're saying we're willing to trade off benefit for additional costs. But price is always a factor. I had a vendor come to my office and ask me, what if I have the cure for cancer? You know, does price really matter? I can save some. We literally had this conversation. I'm not making this up. I have the cure for cancer. Why, you know, would you care in that price? You'd pay whatever for that cure. And I told him, no, we wouldn't. Price is always a factor. There is a limiting factor. And nowadays, that is an increasingly limiting factor to what I could pay. You may be the perfect solution to my need, but you may have also priced yourself out of my ability to buy from you. We always look at your price, but we also owe you a clear answer to how much weight we're putting on price. And if that's not clear, you're allowed to ask that. So I put up there in bold type and pointed arrows there, roughly 2,500, 3,000 contract actions per year. For any single one, we rarely ever get 10 responses for it. And when I tell people that, they're shocked. I verify that with my contracting activity. Like, is that really true? That seems like, yeah. I can tell when they get more than 10 because screams go off in the building. I share office space with our contracting personnel, and they literally start screaming because they so rarely see it. They're shocked that, hey, we got 10 or 12 responses. Most people, for a variety of reasons, talk themselves out of bidding. They figure, they make that assumption. Hey, I just saw it on FBO for the first time. There's no point bidding. They already know who they want, which is incorrect. I don't have time to respond. That may be true. In our environment, unfortunately, we don't give you a lot of time. We continue to work to give you more time. I had one vendor, I just called up because the response rate was so poor. Hey, I know your firm is in this area that we're looking at. Did you see our requirement posted out there? Oh, yeah, we saw that, but we hadn't had a time to have a meeting with anybody, so no one on board the base knows me. Again, bad answer. They just talked themselves out of an opportunity. And so I routinely will tell people, just by bidding, you're ahead of your competition for my requirements, because most of your peers don't bid. So if you bid for my requirements, you've already moved yourself closer to the front of the line. We get less than 10 bids on everything that we do on a daily basis. And that figure has held constant for years. Again, I've been in that office since 2003, and that figure hasn't budged yet. Doing business with, whether it's with my office or any of my colleagues, has a unique challenge. And I love this way. There's the past president of the National Contract Management Association put it. Contracting with public commercial funds involves unique trade-offs and conflicting goals. Accepting that premise complicates the process, but is necessary to improving and making it as effective as possible. The way we buy is different the way you do in a commercial world, the way you and I do in our private life, and we recognize that. There are mandates and strings that are levied upon us that make it different. Congress is always trying to improve that process, and certainly there's room for improvement in how we buy. But we will never buy the same way that you do in the commercial world, and certainly not the same way you do in a private life. They're just additional mandates that I have to meet. But successful firms recognize that, bend themselves around the system and engage with us in that regard. So hopefully this morning was helpful, and I'm going to open it up brief for some last-minute questions before we secure. So any questions for everyone else except me? No. And here's my contact information. I've avoided giving that, trying to stay within the strictures of the Witness Protection Program, but I'll just out myself. There's my information there on the screen. What was the question?
A&E contracts.
Question is, does my office hire A&E? Those functions are exclusively done for us by the NAFAC, the Naval Facilities Engineering Command. So construction of those kind of services are not done by my office.
Hi. You said most of your contracts are below $250,000. Do all of those show up on FBO, or are there some that you just call 3 vendors and choose the best?
I mentioned that a huge majority of our requirements are below the simplified acquisition threshold, below that $250K. Most of those do appear on FBO. That's the principal place where they appear. We utilize some GSA contracts as well. I know the previous speaker mentioned NASA SOUP. And for those of you who weren't clear on that, you're like, NASA? The space agency. The space agency, I don't know why or how, but got themselves into the business of providing IT goods, principally goods, but some software as well, to the entire federal government. Kind of like a mini GSA. NASA, the space agency, is now in that business as a government-wide provider of IT hardware. So we buy some hardware from them, but most of our requirements will appear on FBO. So, sir?
Yes, I like a question. What office does the training for Marines coming out of the military?
It is a mix. Most of that will be MCCS, for Marines transitioning out.
Yes, sir.
Marine Corps Community Services. Yes. So you contact me, and then I can reply back with the contact within that agency. Any other questions?
Kim is leaving us. She's done an excellent job, and she's going to be highly missed. But what I want two quick things that I want to sort of touch bases on is on those sources up. I'm going to give you an example. Just about 2 months ago, probably about 6 weeks ago, I was on the facility service contract as a contracting officer. Before I left, I knew for a fact that this particular requirement was going to go as DVOSB, right? Because that's what we expected. When it came to my office to sign the DD 2579, we want a small business. Why? Because the two companies that they were going to send their capability statements, only one sent it. So we had to go small business. The importance of this, be sure that you guys respond to them. It's very easy for two companies to compete against each other. That's 50-50 chances. When you compete with the other small businesses, the chances decrease immensely. And the other one is that, especially for large business and even small businesses, when we go full and open, is the small business factor. Most people don't pay attention to that small business factor. I will tell you this. If you are deficient on that factor, you are deficient on the proposal. Regardless how good you are, how technically acceptable you are, or anything else, the small business factor matters. So please read it. And please reply to it accordingly. Thank you. And we're going to miss you.
Any last question? Now, closing advice again, thank you so much for taking time out. I don't doubt that you didn't get all your questions answered, that you're walking away thinking, man, I really want to know X. Hit up our points of contact, follow up with us, bug the heck out of us. That's what we've invited you to do. The last piece of advice I've always given firms, the key to being successful with us is to be a great company. Social economic categories and factors are important, but at the end of the day, be a great company, and that's who we're seeking to buy from. Thank you very much.